start this thing. All right.
So basically, you want to introduce yourself? How do you want to do this?
I'm just going to start talking. Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Cummings, and this is the 0 episode of Season 0 that I'm calling it this week of this podcast project that I'm doing. And I got Patrick here right now to help kind of guide me through this 10-minute intro. I'm not exactly sure if it's going to be 10 minutes. Maybe it'll be shorter. But after the session...
10 minutes of monotone talking.
After the session, Season 0 is what I'm introducing right now. So there's this podcast project that I've had sort of in the back of my head for a couple years, and I committed to doing it at the beginning of the year this year, and I was really gung-ho with it for 2 or 3 months, and then got really busy with recording projects, which is rad, but obviously that made me kick this other stuff to the curb. Recording engineers doing a podcast is not a good thing right now because you're like, oh, squeaky chair. Let me fix that. I recorded the last one we did, you and I did episode 6, which is going to be episode 6 here a couple weeks ago. We did on iPhones, which we thought might work.
Which we got lied to about. Instead of that, it works great.
Yeah, it did not. And I recorded one on a pair of Telefunken 251s. So one episode will be on the 251s in the 6, and one's going to be on iPhones.
Perfect.
And one's going through some vintage Neeves, and one's going through an iPhone internal mic preamp. We covered the gamut.
The quality.
Yeah. Thankfully, there's no audio engineers listening to this, so
at the end,
no one's going to be picky about the quality of the sound.
Please comment and rate
yes.
the quality of sound after every episode.
Anyways, after the session, the genesis of it was that I was, out of all the sessions I've done over the years, there was always these really cool conversations that I would have with people after, the client left, and maybe we'd have like a drink and sit there and chill and talk about nerdy studio stuff. And it occurred to me, like, I'd have these mentors that were... excuse me, much more storied than me, that had worked with, some legends and had done some really cool stuff. And I would, we'd sit there at midnight in the studio after everybody left, and we'd be sitting there talking, and all of a sudden I'd hear this really cool story about a celebrity or a rock star, like a huge rock star, and I'd be like, no one's ever heard that before. And it's not that the stories are necessarily private, but just there's just so many of them out there that you would hear something kind of unique and interesting. So I'd have these conversations with these people and think, God, I wish I could record that. And also I would ask them about, why they've been into their Neeves for the last, 20 years, or what their favorite compressor was, or how they did this thing on a record. And we would talk about it, and nobody would hear it but me, and maybe, an intern if he was chilling or whatever. And so that was the idea for the podcast project. So I was like, hey, I'm going to do a podcast. And I didn't really know what I was getting into, because what I ended up doing was just talking to a few friends and then setting up a couple of microphones with people. I ended up recording 6 of these things over the last, year. I did 5 of them within like 2 months, and I took a year break and did one more, which you did.
So are they all going to be about an hour?
Yeah. So it's a conversational format podcast. Ideally, they're about an hour. That was my goal. I think, though, after having gone through this, I might, assuming I continue this project, which I'm doing for fun, like I'm not doing this for any other reason than just for shits and giggles, I'm going to shorten them, because an hour it's a little long sometimes.
Depending on what you do for work, it's a little,
Yeah, I mean, the obvious audience for this podcast is pretty niche, it's dorks like me and you.
But a lot of people could have desk jobs and also do engineering production on the side. So it'll pass the time at their cubicle.
Yeah, exactly. So the purpose and the reason I'm calling this Season 0 instead of like Season 1 of the podcast, because I really don't know. I realized like really early on that not having any experience doing podcasts and not having any experience as a journalist on any level. I'm just a recording engineer and a record producer. And, like, I don't know how to do a radio show. You have more experience doing that because you're on the radio right now here in San Diego. But I figured I'm just going to jump in with both feet and see what happens. And I think the reason I'm calling this season 0 now is because I can see from each one of these recordings, the 6 of them, they're all quite a bit different and very, they have their amazing moments and their slow moments. And I think this is going to be the beta season, the proof of concept where I put this out in the world and then listen to it a little bit myself and turn it into whatever it's going to ultimately be. So
sounds like a programmer that we know who just loves to put out beta versions and then
who are you talking about?
Make you buy them. And I go, okay, we fixed the updates 6 weeks later after you've already started.
We won't name any names. But yeah, a little background on me. I have several different guests on the show. And a little background on me is I'm a recording engineer and a record producer and a mixing engineer, and I've been doing it for a long time. Well, it seems like a long time, almost a couple decades. And then I have really cool guests on in the season. I'm not sure who season 1's going to be, episode 1 is going to be with, because I haven't decided on the release order of these things. But
you have a list. Are you trying to keep it secret, the list?
No, not at all. It's,
there's some heavy hitters on here.
Yeah, I've got 6 episodes. Michael BEINHORN, who was that was a big deal for me because Michael BEINHORN's like a hero of mine. He, as a kid of the 90s, he's done amazing stuff since then, but as a kid of the 90s, man, he ruled that period of time with Soundgarden and Hole and Marilyn Manson and Social Distortion and all these amazing artists. And I believe when we were doing his podcast, he was just about to release a book. So we just did this back in like February or March. He was just about to release his book on, I forget the publisher. I bought it and I've read it since. But he put a book out and he released a new Mew record, I think, that same week. So he's on it. He's amazing. So Michael BEINHORN, my buddy David Cole, who lives here in San Diego now and is an instructor here and does a lot of mixing down here as well. Used to be a staff engineer at Captiol and has worked with Bob Seger, Tina Turner, Melissa Etheridge, Steve Miller. So he's an episode. How many is that? 2?
Yeah.
Reuben Cohen.
That's 2.
Reuben Cohen at Lurssen Mastering. Reuben's a young guy and really good at his job, and I wanted his take on things, and so we did an interview with him up at Lurssen Mastering, and that was cool.
He mastered the Tiny Telephones record that you mixed.
Really?
Yeah, you and Jimmy Lavelle.
And you had to be happy.
Yeah,
you were happy.
All 3 of us mixed one record together, and then he mastered it.
Yeah, he's the man. He's worked with Bruno Mars and Pharrell and this guy George Harrison and some band called the Foo Fighters, and he's done. I think him and Gavin kind of tag team a lot of these projects up at Lurssen Mastering. So we interviewed him. Mark NEEDHAM we interviewed, who's done The Killers, Chris Isaak, Neon Trees. One of my favorite young bands, Sleeper Agent, and just a bazillion different things. He's mostly a mixing engineer now and occasionally
Red
goes
House
in.
Painters is on there, I see that.
Yeah, I put that on there because I have a few friends that really like them. A lot of people have no idea who they are.
I love them.
Yeah, they have this really, it's funny you should say that. I've run into just other musician nerds around town that are into that.
It's what's Mark Kozlek is the singer and guitarist, I believe, and he did an album with Jimmy Lavelle that's called Perils from the Sea. Wow. And it is unbelievable. The guy can tell a story like nobody's business.
I'm going to have to look that up.
It's really, really good.
Wow.
It's all done with little 8-bit chirps and that kind of stuff. Almost like the entire thing sounds like an old Casio.
When did they do that? Recently?
Like 2 years ago.
Oh. I'm going to have to look that up, dude. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's really, really good.
Yeah. So Mark, obviously we did that one. That was a while ago as well. When we were there, he was mixing Third Eye Blind, I think, when we were in the studio. Yeah, it was a cool experience. The Michael BEINHORN one, we had my buddy I've been trying, kind of experimenting through this thing with having, a second or a third person in the room to kind of help the conversation flow. And on the Michael BEINHORN one, we had my buddy Dan Bailey, who played some drums for your project, who's the drummer for Father John Misty right now. And that was cool having him on there because he was able to really add a whole new element to that one.
Yeah. And on top of that, he's the drummer of 50 other bands too. It seems
like a bazillion different things. He's amazing. I saw Father John Misty on I think it was not Conan, one of the late night shows. Maybe it was Jimmy. I'm not sure. Anyways, it was insane how good they are. That they're just incredible right now.
Yeah, people love him too. It was insane that he banged out that entire album in a matter of 3 or 4 hours too. Never hearing the songs before.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're talking about
my entire album. And some of it's straightforward.
He's a machine.
But we had problems with some of them, and he seemed to knock them out pretty quick.
So that was, let's see, what am I missing? A couple more. Dr. Tim Mullen, who's a guy that lives here in San Diego, and he's actually a neuroscientist. I think that'd be the best way to describe him. In the podcast, I'm asking him about his background, and at one point he says, "Well, I got my first PhD." I'm like, "Okay, your first PhD, you did this." So he's on another level, and the reason we had him on the podcast is because he does actually a lot of art on the side. He's a musician, and on the side he uses his background in neuroscience to actually do music projects. And he does a lot of work with what they call BCI, which is brain-computer interfaces. So basically, it's what you think it is. It's a thing you put on your head, and then you can control things with. And so he does music projects and incorporates that technology.
From using the brainwaves?
Yeah.
So
does he
deal
it's more
with
like
a lot
art
of
installations. It's very modern art-ish. It's not just a music performance on stage, but he's done all these different things. So once a year he does kind of a different thing.
Does he do stuff I know there's some people out there that Max Richter just did an album called I think it's called Sleep Now,
right?
But where they use the different waves, that calming waves, and different frequencies to.
Well,
make
you'll
you
have
fall
to
asleep.
listen to the podcast and find out.
Man, I'm excited.
It's pretty heady stuff, man, but it's good. And that one went
Literally.
on for it went on for an hour and a half, that conversation. And I listened to it the other day and I'm thinking, shit, how in the hell am I going to cut this down? I mean, I don't know. That's for season one. I got to figure out maybe a different format for the next round of things here. But yeah, his stuff's amazing. And actually that was one of my favorite ones to do because that guy, he's brilliant. He's brilliant and really talented as an artist too. And some of the art installations and stuff he's done in the past with his background are just incredible. So we did one with him, and then whom I forget? Oh, Ken, the one we did together. Yeah. So Ken Andrews, singer, artist, mixer, producer, and frontman of Failure, who just played down here. We interviewed him backstage on the iPhones.
Yeah.
Because the Pro Tools rig wasn't working.
I was thinking about that after I left. It must be so hard to be him and just being all this has to be so perfect.
Right. Are you talking about his show?
Yeah. Just the amount of work that goes into it, using different, watching the switch off guitars because
that show was amazing, right?
They can't get the feedback from those guitars, so you had to switch out different guitars that will. And I was just looking at his mic stand and
the two iPads on it.
Well, it looked like one of those those joke canes that you can buy, and they have the rear view mirror on them and the cup holder.
Yeah,
he's got a cup holder, two iPads, picks,
cup holder, two iPads, picks, the hat with the two drinks in it and the straws coming down. No, he didn't have that.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of. It was busy, but actually not very busy at all because he had nothing on stage.
There's no amps or anything on stage, so it's actually except for the what do they have? Just those crazy LED screens, and that was a really cool show, man.
Yeah, it was really cool,
and how they put that together. We talk about that in the podcast, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
They're using a ton of tech in their show, so it's cool to learn how they present the live band thing with all that modern tech, and then of course we talk about making records and stuff, and he's mixed and he's either been the mixer on stuff that has just been really instrumental and influential to me, or been the artist on that stuff.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, he's done everything, but from scoring entire movies to mixing huge
the
albums.
Bond theme for recently. Which one? I forget which one he did. The one with Chris Cornell.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he did that one.
I was thinking about when he did that movie Shrink, which was really good.
Oh yeah, I never saw that film. I remember.
Really good. That's what actually really influenced me to contact him to have him mix a record, because he
did a song in Surf's Up. He did a song in one of the Penguin movies.
Really?
Animated Penguin movies. I think it's Surf's Up. It's like the main. It's a really good like theme song. But yeah, I mean that's not why. That's not necessarily the thing that influenced me.
I mean, he's known for drums.
Right, his drum sounds are insane.
The way that he recorded the drums on his new album is really, really interesting.
I mean, I think a lot of people would agree that the stuff he did in terms of rock drums, like the recordings he did with Failure in the mid-'90s, really kind of were a benchmark for a lot of things that happened around that same time and thereafter.
Yeah, that huge drum sound definitely stemmed from him. It wasn't Stephen Slate, it was him.
It was him. It was him. It wasn't samples. And then, of course, him and Albini, he did a record with Albini prior to doing that. I don't know, man. Maybe there's this whole genesis there that I have to kind of think about. But, yeah, he's awesome. And he's been real busy again. I know he mixed the Paramore record this year. I think it was this year. Maybe it's been a year since he did that. I don't know. But that record was a huge success for that band. That was like a reinvention for them. So that was a big deal. And
he talks about the current band that he's mixing, which
by the time this comes out,
probably will be out, and then you can figure it out and hear him talk about it.
So that pretty much covers it. Six of those, 6 different people. Not really an interview, more of just a conversation. Some of them were talking about what plugins they like. Some of them were talking about what instruments and gear they like and mics they like. Some of them were talking about how to best get what you want out of an artist. Some of them were not talking about any of that shit. Some of them were talking about the state of the music industry. Sometimes we're talking about neuroscience.
Yeah, brainwaves.
Brainwaves. That only happens a little bit in the season. So we'll see, man. I mean, I don't know if, I don't know if I'm going to continue with this project or not, but I wanted to, record this with you right now because I as an introduction to the whole idea. And, we'll see what's next. And hopefully people really like it and they subscribe. What am I supposed to say as a podcaster? Subscribe to my podcast after the session?
Do you know
after the session?
Do you know where it's posted or how?
Right now it's going to be posted on my website, christiancummings.com, but I've got a feeling we're going to generate a new website for it.
Through iTunes?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
We mean where can you find the podcast?
Yeah.
It's your normal podcasting retailers.
Okay, so it's not going to be a SoundCloud thing. It's going to be an iTunes.
Best Buy.
Okay, so yeah.
No, it'll be honestly
Circuit City.
it'll be in iTunes.
Walmart in the comedy section.
Yeah. There's literally one of the things that, I mean, it's actually a pretty, I don't want to say they all kind of come out serious, but I wanted to be very respectful to people as I was recording them. So there's a definite lack of like dick and fart jokes that
maybe you should just do one of these after every one of them and be like, that was fucking great.
Yeah.
Now smell
no, it's
my
probably
farts.
a good thing. It's probably a good thing. But yeah, iTunes, that's where I get most of my stuff. And I'm into podcasts. So iTunes, the website, we'll stream off the website. Probably SoundCloud, maybe YouTube. But it's going to be through all the normal, spots you can find it. So.
And are you going to release them all at once, or are you going to do once a month?
I'm going to do one a week from now until Christmas, and then assess at the beginning of the year. So basically, it's the beginning of November. So between now and Christmas break, I'm going to do 6, one a week, and I don't know what order yet, but do one a week and see what people think. And I think they're really cool, and then assess if we'll do more after that.
And you got to find more people to interview.
That's no problem. There's so many people that I'd be stoked on interviewing.
begging you, knocking down your door.
Yeah, I'm sure. But all of the guys, a preliminary thank you to everyone that did this with me, because they did it all, they kind of just jumped in without knowing what they were getting into, and they just did it all on faith, so to speak, that, I wasn't going to ambush them with, controversial questions or try to pull some, journalist stuff on them. It's just a conversation. That's all it is. And
Conversation about gear,
yeah,
records.
well, I don't want
whatever they actually want
I know
to talk
this
about.
is going on for a long time now, but no, actually, my goal was to not talk about gear. My goal with this whole thing was to not talk about gear at all. I don't want to talk about gear. I don't want to talk about fucking plugins. That's what I'm trying to kind of surpass. It totally devolves into that all the time in the podcast, but I don't want to do that. I actually want to talk about shit that I think is more important, and that's the art of making a record, as opposed to just dorky gear stuff. Why do I want to talk about gear? Like, just you type that into YouTube, and you're gonna find so much on here's how you set up a compressor to get a vocal, and the world needs another one of those hole in the head, right? So that's the opposite of what I'm trying to do.
They like presets. Nobody likes ears.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be more about just digging in and talking about shit that inspires these people and me, and making records, basically, or recordings, or doing something very artistic. And I think that's what I think we accomplished that. So, thank you, Patrick, for
You're welcome,
helping me
Christian.
sort this out right now. Are there any other questions that I need to answer about what this podcast is, or?
Do you have the actual date when this is going to start?
No.
What date is this going to be coming out on?
I don't know.
Are you going to be releasing them on Mondays or Tuesdays or Thursdays?
Does that matter?
Well, you're saying
No, I'm literally asking you. Does that
you're
matter?
saying it's once
that's
a
the point
week?
of that's the
once a week. You want
Once a
someone to
week.
be anticipate next Monday we'll have blah 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 on.
I think it'll be released. My tentative plan right now is every Tuesday for 6 weeks, starting next Tuesday.
Tuesday's
and
a good
hopefully
day.
I can put this out on Tuesday. And I think the
So
veteran
it'd be really weird.
I
if
think
you
the
put this
veteran-
out afterwards.
well, dude, half of these podcasts were recorded in March, and where we talk about things that are coming out in April, and we're going to be hearing about them 6 months later. But I think putting one out a week is a cool idea. I think that veteran podcasters and nerdy SEO web people would be like, oh, there's so much better ways to launch a podcast than the way you're doing it. But I kind of don't care, because this is for me, and if other people like it, great. That'd be cool. But this is for me. So,
All right.
thanks, Pat.
Is that it?
That's it. After the session, this is the end of the intro podcast. Yay. And after the session, we'll be coming to an iPhone near you. And listen to
Recorded
it.
on iPhones, listen to on iPhones.
And let us know what you think. Thanks for listening.
That was the end. Back just before I coughed. It fades out.
I'll note here, faded cough.